Rich Piana was sucker punched by one of his former friends in the middle of a fitness expo packed with fans. Jeff Nippard was jabbed in the throat twice while filming a workout in a public gym. These are the bodybuilders who messed with the wrong bodybuilder and quickly realized they picked the wrong fight. It happened at a fitness expo in front of cameras, autograph tables, and fans lined up for photos. Wheeze Boxley, better known in bodybuilding circles as Mac Truck, walked up to Rich Piana's booth at the LA Fit Expo and got in his face. Rich Piana was punched by Wheeze Mac Truck Boxley at the LA Expo, who is a former member of Rich's 5% crew. That detail matters. This wasn't a stranger. This was a guy who used to stand next to Piana, wear his brand, and call him a friend. The two had history, and not the good kind. Piana had recently been caught on video slapping a bodybuilder with autism named Jason Geneva, and Rich Piana had slapped an autistic bodybuilder called Jason Geneva, and then a former member of his own crew punched him at the LA Expo. So when Mac Truck showed up at the booth, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was payback, or at least it looked that way to everyone watching. Here's how it actually went down. Rich was confronted by Mac Truck at his 5% booth at the LA Fit Expo, and Rich suggested they take their differences outside, but instead was sucker punched by Mac Truck. Piana tried to de-escalate. He wanted to handle it like men, away from the cameras and the fans and the kids walking around with their parents. Mac Truck didn't wait for an answer. He swung, and then it got worse for Mac Truck's side of the room. Rich was sucker punched by Mac Truck, which led to another fight by fellow 5%er Alex, who is a MMA fighter, and another person from Mac's crew. Piana might not have thrown the first punch, but he had people around him who weren't going to just stand there. One of them was a trained fighter, and he made that very clear very fast. The footage exists, and it's not flattering for Mac Truck. A witness who happened to be filming at the exact right moment caught the whole thing, start to finish. A YouTuber named Mr. Yorkie Lover Fitness Entertainment filmed the incident. He knew Rich Piana and was filming at the expo and captured the footage of this attack. What the footage shows is a short, ugly scuffle that ends with security running over and pulling bodies apart, before it could turn into a full riot in the middle of a trade show floor. Piana, for his part, brushed it off in front of the cameras almost immediately. Security came and diffused the situation fairly quickly, and Rich Piana went back to his booth, signing autographs, taking pictures as nothing happened. That's the image that stuck. A guy getting sucker punched in front of hundreds of people, and then going right back to posing for photos like it was a mosquito bite. Mac Truck didn't let it go quietly, though. He posted his own video, almost immediately trying to reframe what everyone had just watched. Mac Truck uploaded another video defending his actions and explaining that it was not a sucker punch. He kept at it too. Mac Truck, the man who started the fight with Rich Piana, made another video defending his actions, and seemed mostly obsessed with proving that his punch was not a sucker punch at all. Didn't matter how many videos he made. The footage was already out there, and the internet had already made up its mind about what it saw. The story didn't stop at the expo floor either. Other bodybuilders started weighing in, because in this world, everybody's got a channel and everybody's got an opinion. Kali Muscle jumped into the conversation not long after, adding his own take on the whole mess. Kali Muscle became the newest person to jump into the fray regarding Rich Piana and Mac Truck's sucker punch situation, jumping in on the famed sucker punch. The beef had legs well beyond the parking lot where it started. There was a deeper story underneath all of it, too. Piana and Mac Truck had once been close, part of the same crew, wearing the same gear, building the same brand together. 2017 saw the tragic passing of YouTube star and bodybuilding personality Rich Piana. But it was also a tumultuous year that included a fistfight that sparked a feud with Mac Truck. Months after which Mac Truck reflected on everything that transpired, from their initial close friendship all the way to their eventual falling out. That's the part people forget when they only watch the 10-second clip. This wasn't two strangers. This was a friendship that blew up in front of a live audience, and one guy walked away from it, having thrown a punch that didn't land the way he wanted. Piana passed away later that same year, and the footage from that expo floor took on a different weight after that. It became one of the moments people point to when they talk about his life. Not just the training videos, not just the size, but the day a former friend swung on him in public and got answered by a room full of people who weren't having it. Mac Truck still talks about it in interviews to this day, still explaining his side, still fielding questions. The punch landed in January. The conversation about it never really stopped. Fast forward to a Canadian gym, years later, and a completely different kind of confrontation. This one between two men who'd built entire careers out of filming themselves lift weights. Jeff Nippard is one of the biggest names in evidence-based fitness content, a bodybuilder and coach with a massive following built on breaking down training science. Mike Van Wyck runs in the same circles, another bodybuilding content creator with his own audience and his own opinions about how things should be done. The two had beef brewing online before anything physical happened. It came to a head inside a gym called Pure Muscle and Fitness, in front of a camera Nippard had set up to film himself doing bicep curls. A workout session for bodybuilder Jeff Nippard turned violent after a physical confrontation with fellow fitness guru Mike Van Wyck was caught on video at Pure Muscle Plus Fitness Gym in Ontario, Canada. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was making content, same as any other day. Van Wyck didn't see it that way. As Nippard was filming bicep curls for a YouTube short, Mike brushed by him and said sup. Their first engagement that day, and Nippard chuckled. And then Mike said, "Oh, things are about to get real funny," as he walked past him. That line right there is the whole story in miniature. A guy walking past, dropping a threat like it's nothing, and continuing on like he didn't just tip his hand. Nippard didn't ignore it. He asked what Van Wyck meant, and made sure his cameraman kept rolling just in case things actually did turn funny. They did, and not in the way anyone wanted. Nippard asked him, "What did you mean by that?" and made sure his cameraman was filming in case he tried any funny business. Then Mike walked back toward him, said turn the camera off, and immediately jabbed him in the throat. One jab wasn't enough either. The gym turned into a scene fast. Once Jeff was back on his feet, he was reportedly jabbed in the throat a second time, and his videographer was reportedly shoved. Van Wyck telling him never to talk about him ever again, before jabbing him again and turning to push the cameraman against a cable machine. 2 throat strikes and a shove in the middle of a public gym, with weights racks and other members standing right there. Nippard didn't stay quiet about it afterward. He posted an update to clear up what actually went down before rumors could spiral. Nippard said Mike Van Wyck jabbed him in the throat twice in the middle of the gym, and then shoved his cameraman, adding that there was already a lie going around that Mike asked him to stay away and that he didn't listen, calling that false and noting the gym has security footage to prove it. He wasn't willing to let Van Wyck control the story. He also gave people a health update, since a jab to the throat isn't something you just shake off. Jeff gave an update saying he got a CT scan done and he's okay. Small mercy, all things considered, but a scary 24 hours for anyone watching the clip and wondering if a fitness beef had just turned into a hospital visit. The consequences landed fast for Van Wyck. The confrontation led to Van Wyck being banned from the facility and Nippard pressing charges for assault. That's the part that really separates this from a scuffle you shrug off. This wasn't just an embarrassing video. It was a criminal complaint, a gym ban, and a paper trail that doesn't just disappear once the news cycle moves on. What actually lit the fuse in the first place? The altercation between Nippard and Van Wyck was reportedly sparked by a video Nippard posted on Instagram, responding to one of Van Wyck's claims. 2 content creators, a disagreement over a claim, and it escalated from comment sections to an actual gym floor. Van Wyck picked a fight with a guy who had cameras rolling, receipts ready, and zero interest in letting the narrative slide. He learned the hard way that jabbing someone in the throat in a gym full of witnesses doesn't stay contained to that gym. Not every one of these stories starts with 2 rivals who already hated each other. Sometimes it starts with a crowd, some noise, and a mask policy nobody wanted to follow. That's exactly how things went sideways for Kali Muscle and his training partner Big Boy at the iconic Gold's Gym in Venice. Both men are massive names in the online fitness space, the kind of guys whose subscriber counts alone tell you they didn't need to start trouble to get attention. With 500,000 subscribers for Big Boy and 2.2 million for Kali, there's no denying their place as some of the biggest stars in the fitness industry. They rolled into Gold's with camera crews, ready to film a session using some of the gym's most famous equipment. The pair of fitness stars teamed up to hit the iconic Gold's Gym Venice, each bringing along their own individual camera crews to film the session for YouTube, with one big goal in mind. It should have been a straightforward content day, heavy lifts, big personalities, good footage. Instead, it turned into something else entirely once gym staff stepped in. After hitting the gym and using the world's heaviest gold dumbbells, Kali Muscle and Big Boy were asked to leave Gold's Gym Venice before getting into an altercation with a person outside the gym. The exact spark, according to people who were actually there that day, wasn't really about the two of them being famous. It was about noise, and it was about the mask rules that were still in effect at the time. One gym regular who says he was there that day laid out what he saw. He didn't recognize either of them, mask policy or not, and noted the group of about 5 had taken over the dumbbell area other members liked to use. There were about 5 people in the group, and they seemed to take over the dumbbell area that a lot of people like to use. That's often how these things start. Not a grudge, not an old beef, just too many bodies and too much noise in one corner of the gym floor. Someone in the group apparently wasn't thrilled about being told to leave, and made that known loudly enough for other members to hear it on their way out. One member walked past the group on his way out and heard one of them saying, "Do they know who I am?" adding that a lot of famous people work out at Gold's, so no one should assume to be known. That line has aged into something close to a punchline in the fitness world. The classic mistake of assuming your name carries more weight than the gym's rules. The gym itself wasn't picking a fight either. Staff were simply doing what they'd been doing with anyone breaking mask protocol at the time, according to people who'd trained there for years. One commenter said he didn't know who they were either, and had been a member for 7 years, and could vouch for the staff of Gold's that they're all stand-up individuals. In other words, this wasn't a gym looking to make an example out of 2 YouTube stars. It was a gym enforcing the same rule on everyone, famous or not. What followed once they stepped outside is where things really turned. The confrontation with a bystander outside the building is what most people remember from the whole saga, more than the noise complaint or the mask rule that triggered it. 2 of the biggest names in online bodybuilding, thrown out of one of the most famous gyms in the world, ended up in a shouting match with someone who had no idea or simply didn't care who he was dealing with. It's the kind of moment that spread fast specifically because it flipped the usual script. Instead of 2 bodybuilders squaring off against each other, it was 2 of fitness's biggest stars getting told, essentially, that their fame meant nothing the second they stepped outside those doors. Some of these stories don't end with a viral clip and a few headlines. Some of them end a lot darker, and this next one is the heaviest of the bunch. It happened outside Shootbox Academy in Sierra Vista, Arizona, a gym with serious pedigree in the fighting world. The incident occurred at Shootbox Academy in Sierra Vista, Arizona, an affiliate of arguably the greatest team in MMA history, whose roster over the years produced legends across multiple divisions. This wasn't some random strip mall gym. This was a serious combat sports lineage, and the instructor at the center of this story came out of that exact tradition. The footage that eventually leaked online only showed part of the story. A bloodied instructor on top of another man on the mat, clearly having gotten the better of things by the time the camera started rolling. The video in 2 parts opens with the fight already on the mat, the bloodied coach on top. Out of context, it looked like a straightforward beatdown. The real story started well before the camera turned on. It began, of all places, in a parking lot near a grocery store. The incident began while the jiu-jitsu professor was leaving a nearby supermarket. No warning, no confrontation building up over weeks online, just an ordinary day that turned violent in seconds. The man responsible was a bodybuilder, one who was also said to have some background in MMA himself, which made the whole thing feel less like a random mugging and more like someone deliberately picking a fight he thought he could win. The fight didn't end quickly either. This dragged out far longer than anyone would expect from a street altercation. This altercation lasted approximately 30 minutes as both men exchanged kicks and punches. Half an hour of 2 grown men trading strikes in public is an extraordinarily long time, and it left real damage on both sides before it was over. The individual who originally attacked the instructor landed some hard strikes that injured him, cutting his face and injuring his leg. But the instructor had a background that the bodybuilder clearly hadn't accounted for. Once things hit the ground, decades of training kicked in. As a response, the instructor took the fight to the ground and reverted to his old training in Vale Tudo, fighting with Shootbox Brazil. That's the turning point in the whole story. The moment a street fight turned into a very one-sided grappling exchange. Because one man had spent his life training for exactly this kind of situation and the other hadn't. The gym's account of what happened added even more weight to the story once it came out. According to people connected to Shoot Box, this wasn't the attacker's only incident that day. The instructor was attacked in a supermarket in daylight by a larger man, 90 pounds heavier and 15 years younger. And on the same day, the aggressor attacked an elderly woman who didn't press charges because she knew him and his history with drugs. That detail changes the entire complexion of the story. This wasn't a one-off flash of anger. This was a man with a pattern. His history went further back than that one day, too. He was kicked out of the military for drug use, with a very extensive criminal history. None of that excuses picking a fight with a stranger outside a grocery store. But it does explain why an experienced jiu-jitsu coach ended up as a target. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong instructor to underestimate. The saddest part of this story is how it ended, years after the fight itself. The man who started it all didn't get a redemption arc or a rematch. An account linked to the academy's owner indicated that the bodybuilder had died of a drug overdose, passing away with a meth overdose 4 years after the fight. Whatever point he was trying to prove that day in the parking lot, it cost him blood, a public beating, and ultimately didn't change the trajectory his life was already on. The instructor, for what it's worth, came out of the story with his reputation intact, and then some. He's described as a very well-mannered, friendly, and respected practitioner who teaches respect and humility to his students, well-liked and continually serving his community in countless ways. Not exactly the profile of someone you'd want to jump outside a supermarket. But that's the thing about this whole story. Nobody looks dangerous standing in a parking lot with grocery bags. Until they are. Not every one of these confrontations comes from an old rivalry or a filmed feud. Some of the most jaw-dropping ones happen when a total stranger breaks into the wrong space entirely. A home and apartment gym, a place they think is empty, and finds out too late exactly who they're dealing with. Start with an 82-year-old woman in Rochester, New York, who'd spent her life as a competitive bodybuilder and wasn't about to let a break-in change that. Willie Murphy had just gotten home from a dollar store run when a man who claimed to be shot showed up at her door, begging for help. Murphy recounted the events of that Thursday night when a man broke into her home as she was getting ready for bed around 11, saying the man was ringing the bell, and when she went to the door he was doubled over saying, help me, I've been shot, call 911. Classic ploy, it worked exactly 0% as intended. Instead of a helpless victim, he found himself facing a woman who'd spent decades building strength most men half her age don't have. Under the cover of darkness, the 28-year-old intruder broke through her chain lock and entered her living room. And after Murphy cussed and told him to get out, he lunged for her. She didn't run, she grabbed whatever was closest and went to work. Murphy picked up a small TV tray table and started wailing him, noting he was really dumbfounded. That reaction alone tells you everything about how badly he'd misjudged the situation. He came in expecting an easy target, and instead ran into someone who fought back harder than he could handle. She wasn't done there either. Murphy detained him after he fell backward, using shampoo she'd bought earlier that day to blind him, then grabbed a broom and swept the floor with him. By the time police showed up, the roles had completely flipped. The intruder was the one who needed rescuing, and Murphy became something of a local hero, even getting asked for selfies by the officers who responded. Her own words summed up the whole ordeal better than anyone else could. He picked the wrong house to break into. A similar scene played out in Visalia, California, where homeowner Jules Torres was taking a nap before an upcoming competition when she heard noises she assumed were coming from a neighbor's place. Torres was enjoying her morning off, taking a nap in her living room, when she heard noises she thought were coming from a neighbor's house and later from outside, so she opened her front door. What she found instead was a woman inside her own home, and things got physical fast. Torres described the intruder grabbing the back of her head and pulling her around, saying that's when she swung around and started throwing punches. The fight didn't last long once Torres got her hands moving. Police caught the suspect a short distance away, cuts and bruises on her face, while Torres walked away with only minor scrapes of her own. Her verdict on the whole ordeal was blunt and satisfied, glad she got caught. Then there's the story that got the most attention of the three, mostly because it played out in an empty gym with cameras rolling the entire time. Nashali Alma was working out alone late at night in her apartment complex's gym in Tampa when she let in a man she recognized from the building, not realizing what he actually had planned. The 24-year-old said she was working out alone when she saw a gym patron she recognized and let him inside. But later, the man reportedly approached her and tried to touch her, and Alma told deputies she pushed him, yelling for him to back off. It escalated into a genuinely terrifying chase around the gym floor. He started chasing her around the bench, and they ended up on the other side of the gym, where a camera captured him trying to pin her to the floor, but she repeatedly hit him even as he pulled her down. This wasn't a quick scuffle. This was a sustained fight for her safety, caught in full on security footage that the sheriff's office later released to the public. What makes it land even harder is what came out afterward about his intentions. The attacker allegedly confessed to beating and restraining her in order to rape her after his detention, targeting another woman that same night because he found her attractive. Alma's refusal to stop fighting is very likely the reason that night didn't end far worse than it did. Deputies caught him within a day of the attack, and he ended up facing serious charges over what happened in that gym. Alma later explained exactly what was going through her mind the entire time she was fighting for her life. She didn't see herself as smaller or weaker than her attacker. She saw someone she could match and someone she believed she could beat. I am a bodybuilder, and I'm actually pretty strong, so in my mind, he was kinda equal to me, she said afterward, reflecting on the fight. That mindset, built from years of training, is very likely what got her out of that gym alive. 3 different women, 3 different attackers, 3 completely different settings. A front door, a living room, an empty gym at 10 at night. All 3 men walked in thinking they had the advantage. All 3 walked out having badly misjudged exactly who was standing in front of them. A career built on discipline and strength doesn't just show up on a competition stage. It shows up in a living room at midnight, in an empty gym, on a front porch with a fake gunshot wound story that fooled nobody for more than a few seconds. That's the thread running through every one of these stories. Whether it's a fitness expo booth, a Canadian gym floor, a parking lot outside a grocery store, or someone's own front door, the muscle was never really the point. It was the years behind it, the training, the discipline, the instinct that kicks in the second things go physical. That turned every one of these confrontations into exactly the kind of story the other guy never wanted to be part of. Some of them are still explaining themselves in videos years later. Some of them didn't get the chance to explain anything at all. Either way, the lesson holds up every single time. Know who you're squaring up against.